The Life of Chuck is a new drama brought to us by Mike Flanagan based off of a Stephen King short story. Without hopefully giving away any spoilers, this movie delves, you guessed it, into the life of this character Chuck from the time he is a little boy up until he is 39 years of age. The movie is split into 3 different acts, but where things get a little interesting, we start the movie with Act 3, the ending of the story ultimately, and we conclude the movie with Act 1, which is the beginning of Chuck's life. Or at least Chuck when he's a young kid, around that time anyway. I think Mike Flanagan's one of the more underrated directors we've gotten today. I mean, he's really done very well in the horror genre, not just with movies, but with the TV shows he's created. And he seems to have this connection or this very strong working relationship with Stephen King. I mean, he's adapted a lot of Stephen King's books, and he's made some really impressive stuff because of that. So you hear Mike Flanagan directing another Stephen King adaptation, this one, however, being more of a drama. That's what I was interested in seeing. Because we've really only seen Mike Flanagan tackle horror. I wanted to see his range beyond that. What else can he bring to us? Can he deliver a great serious drama? And not only did I find The Life of Chuck impressive, but it is a very undeniably unique movie. Because as I mentioned earlier, the movie takes a very different approach with its storytelling. It starts at the very end of the movie, or at least the very end of what the story of this movie is, and it tells it basically going all the way back to the beginning, roughly anyway. So when the movie kicks off with Act 3, it's a very apocalyptic kind of setting. We don't really see Chuck, we don't really see Tom Hiddleston playing this character. I mean, Chuck's just kind of seen all over the city. Various characters are wondering who this guy is, what his deal is. Like, Act 3 really revolves around characters played by Chiwetel Ejiofor and Karen Gillan and Matthew Lillard. And you just see them kind of navigating through this apocalyptic world, giving their take on life, their take on what the world has been. And that's what I will say right out the gate. This is a very character-driven movie. It's a lot of very dialogue-heavy stuff, as it is in most dramas, and I think, for the most part, the characters and the dialogue really hit home. I mean, in this Act 3, there are monologues given by Chiwetel Ejiofor and Matthew Lillard that I thought were fantastic. Like, and that's what's nice right there. It's like these characters aren't in the movie for very much, and you spend quite a bit of the movie maybe wondering what their role is, what their purpose is. But when they show up and they give their lines and they talk about the situation, it undeniably cuts deep. Because they bring up certain aspects about the universe and about life and about how we are all living in this world and how we're so minuscule in terms of the bigger cosmos that is the universe. It's very deep kind of stuff, and I really like seeing that. It's the type of movie that is going to make you think and delivers you dialogue that just sticks with you. And then we shift into Act 2, which is more of when we get a little bit more focus on Chuck himself, played by Tom Hiddleston. But what's interesting is you get into this Act 2, and it is very different from what we just experienced in Act 3. I mean, Act 3 appeared more apocalyptic, a more, focus on these other people, not really have anything to do with Chuck. So you're wondering, like, okay, maybe Act 2 will explain more of what this all means. But really, Act 2 is maybe the more simple part of the movie. I mean, you see Tom Hiddleston as Chuck. He's in the middle of the street, someone's playing on the drums, he starts dancing, gets this other girl to join in, and it's just this very beautiful, elegant, drawn-out dance sequence, really. And you would think I would be sitting there wondering what that means and wondering, like, why this feels maybe a little out of place from what we got in the first act, or what was Act 3 ultimately that we saw. But it's one of those sequences that's just really well filmed, really sucks you in, was really engaging, surprisingly moving. Like, I couldn't really explain why, but you saw what was going on, you kind of see a little bit of the situation that the characters are in, at least you hear a little bit about it. Like, you're just seeing kind of like a group of strangers right here come together, give these people a show, and just enjoy themselves. Like, one of the takeaways you could take from that Act 2 right there is just like, a moment is there, life is calling you to do something that you feel good about, so just do it. And that's another thing that I would say is very unique about The Life of Chuck. This ultimately feels like they took 3 short films, splice them together to be interwoven into one another to create this movie. But at the same time, that is absolutely what makes you engage with the movie like this, because you are trying to figure out ultimately how does this all come together in the end. Which then brings us all the way home into the final third of this movie, which is Act 1, which is where we explore more on Chuck's childhood. This is where I would say the bigger consensus or the bigger portion of this movie really surrounds upon. Here, Chuck is played by Jacob Tremblay a little bit, but namely played by Benjamin Pajak. I think I pronounced that correctly. Again, you guys know I'm the worst with this, so if I mispronounce that, I'm sorry. But I thought both of them played this younger Chuck very, very well. Because in here, we experience more of what Chuck's adolescence was like, what it was like for him as a kid, how he develops certain loves and certain passions for these different things, why he has such a strong relationship with certain people. And again, there are moments of dialogue, moments of monologues really in this movie that just absolutely hit me where I live. And not because I necessarily connected with them necessarily, but they're just really deep shit that you don't really think about in these type of movies. I mean, he has one teacher that kind of explains like each human being has multitudes to themselves, and like every memory that they have, it's something bigger, it's something deeper. It's not just your life, it creates something that is like this entire world that is you. It's an interesting concept to think about. Like every human being you've come in contact at one point or another in your life, it could be a person you had a meaningful conversation with, it could have been someone you just met in passing, someone you just saw. Like it's a way of saying the entire world has been a part of your life at one point or another, even if it's just for a fleeting second. And so that's all just gonna be there, and that's just what makes the human life so big. But beyond even that, it demonstrates how when you're a child, you develop these interests, you develop these hobbies, you learn certain things from certain people that stick with you for a very long time. And then as you get older, you'll become an adult and you'll pursue the working world, and you'll forget a little bit more about maybe dreams you had or skills you had that you were very good at, and then one day things will just come back to you and you may not even have any sort of explanation for it. It's just there. Mark Hamill's in this movie as well. Also, he's great in this movie, by the way. He plays Chuck's grandfather, and he has a moment of monologue where he's kind of explained to Chuck how, you know, it's important, yes, to have these dreams and have these hobbies, but you also have to pursue things that are bigger for yourself. I mean, it's basically his way of saying you need to get a job at some point. But he does very well at explaining how, you know, a certain way of a certain career is very big and important, not just in terms of finances or a business or a career, but how much the certain skill that applies to this job affects the entire universe itself. It intertwines a little bit with the dialogue that we see in Act 3 in the beginning of this movie, and it kind of makes you understand more what the big picture of this movie is. And that is what I'll say right there. At the very end of this movie, the final shot you get of this movie is surprisingly also very moving. Like Chuck ultimately realizes what his destiny is, what will become of him, like what he ultimately sees for himself, and he reaches a level where he's like at peace with it. Like he understands more about himself, he understands more about life, and he is content with making the most of it. And that is kind of what the big driving point home of this movie is. And for me, there is a moment in this movie that did click with me. Like I see the very end of this movie, you kind of realize what happens, you see what's gonna become of it, and then when you go all the way back into Act 3 and you see what the whole basis of that movie is, or what that act is rather, it all makes sense. It's a really smart concept when you break it down and really think about it. And that's what I will say could be the make or break point for a lot of people with this movie. And you may not even think too much about, you know, how each act connects in with one another. And for some people, they may watch this movie and wonder, why is it told the way it's told? Why are these acts the way they are? It doesn't all feel the same. It's the type of movie that makes you have to think a little bit. But if there is a moment where it does click with you, that's what will ultimately make you really dig this movie a lot more. Definitely feels like the type of movie that will eventually have an explained video on YouTube if there's not one already. And I'm looking forward to seeing those, not because I need an explanation for this movie, but I am interested in seeing if there are people out there who will have different interpretations with a movie like this, because I believe you 100% could. So all in all, I thought The Life of Chuck was great. The acting across the board, everyone does a great job. The role of Chuck, which is played through 3 different people, Tom Hiddleston, Jacob Tremblay, Benjamin Pajak, all did great. The side characters all felt like they had some sort of importance and relevance, even if they don't have one at certain points in the story. Everyone felt like they mattered. I mean, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Karen Gillan, Matthew Lillard, Mark Hamill, there's more out there, but everyone was awesome here. It's a very dialogue and monologue driven movie, but the writing that is here, undeniably, I found exceptional. Has a very unique way of storytelling that I don't know if it will resonate as well with everybody, but I do think if a certain moment can click with you and you can gain some form of understanding about the movie that will mean something to you, I do think that's a difference right there. And in the end, the best way I could describe The Life of Chuck is this. It's very moving. So you know what, with that, I'm gonna give The Life of Chuck an 8 out of 10, which makes this one worth buying on physical home media.
Shut up and take my money.
Great to see Mike Flanagan can actually tackle multiple genres here. Excited to see what he brings us next. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.